At our family bakery, my wife Peyton introduced her friend's son as someone needing practice following culinary school. I didn't realize later that this was a falsehood from the beginning. As early as 5 in the morning, our bakery filled with the aroma of rising dough, cinnamon, and freshly ground coffee. I ignited the ovens, inspected the starter consistency, and placed the initial croissants on display. Peyton appeared refreshed, donning more makeup than usual and a commemorative hairpin I had gifted for our anniversary. At precisely 5:45, the bell above the entrance chimed an hour premature for regular customers. A young man stood in the doorway, estimated to be around 28 or 30. He wore a casual t-shirt that seemed tailor-made for his perfectly toned physique. Broader shoulders, a self-assured gaze, and a hint of stubble adorned his face. "Good morning," he said, seeking Peyton. His voice was strong and assertive. I furrowed my brow, but Peyton had already stepped out from behind the counter. "Reese, you've arrived at the right moment." A slight blush graced her cheeks. "Let me introduce you to Reese. He's the son of my college friend Claire. They both attended culinary school in Austin together and just recently finished. Claire informed me last week that he needs practical experience in a good establishment, and I thought, why not here? Our kitchen is short-staffed for pastries anyway." As I shifted my gaze between my wife and the newcomer, Reese extended his hand. "Pleased to meet you, sir. Peyton has shared many tales about your bakery. I assure you I won't disappoint," he beamed. In his grin, there seemed to be an unexpected note of irony. "Of course, welcome aboard. I'm glad to assist." "But Peyton, why didn't you mention this earlier?" "I'm terribly sorry. It simply slipped my mind amidst all the supplier chaos." Peyton chuckled softly and lightly touched Reese's forearm, guiding him towards the service entrance. Reese fixed his gaze on her for a moment, not the stare of a bashful man. Peyton tidied her hair before they departed towards the service exit. I remained by the counter. A sense of faint, indistinct apprehension stirred within me. After 4 weeks, Reese assimilated seamlessly. His lavender eclairs gained popularity, sales increased, yet my heart didn't dance with delight. The bakery atmosphere became oppressive. Earlier, Peyton, who used to manage household paperwork at home, spent lengthy hours in the glass office of the bakery, affording her a clear view of the pastry station. As soon as Reese lifted his gaze, their eyes locked. On a Friday night after closing the bakery, I lingered in the storage area to tally the sacks of flour. In the dim corridor, I overheard laughter from the kitchen. I stealthily peeked through the partially opened door. Peyton and Reese stood near the central table. He was recounting something animatedly, and my wife erupted in boisterous, flirtatious laughter. Subsequently, Reese moved closer and daintily wiped a smear of cream from her cheek with his finger. Peyton didn't move away, gaze fixed on him with hastened breath. I cleared my throat and entered the room. They distanced themselves. Peyton nervously smoothed her apron. "Oh, Connor, we're talking about the new menu," she said, voice quivering, cheeks flushed. Reese was proposing a lemon curd. "At 11 at night?" I inquired. "Reese, your shift ended 3 hours ago. You should leave." The man nodded and, brushing past me, offered a polite smile, but with an undertone of arrogance. "Good night, chef," he said. At home, Peyton acted overtly caring. When she went to shower, her phone vibrated on the nightstand. I never snooped, but this time my hands involuntarily touched the screen. A message appeared from a contact named Claire Austin. "Thanks for tonight. You were impressive. Looking forward to Monday." I stood still. The tone of the message from her friend Claire was undeniably unfriendly. Peyton reappeared from the bathroom, looking worriedly at the phone. "Did someone text?" "No, it seems I made a mistake," I replied. I suspected that the number Claire in my phone wasn't actually her. The following day, I logged onto the computer and accessed our bakery's banking app to scrutinize each payment more closely. A recent statement caught my attention, revealing a substantial amount withdrawn for a year's rent on an upscale apartment. The address of the building was listed in the description. My wife had secretly provided that expensive apartment for Reese using our business funds and hadn't informed me about it. I entered his full name into a search engine, uncovering his public social media page. As Peyton hadn't lied, he indeed hailed from Austin and completed culinary college there 3 years back. I idly scrolled through images of his cakes and pastries until discovering a family photograph from his graduation day. In the picture, Reese was seen with his arm around a short, heavy-set woman. The caption stated, "Mom, thank you for your support." In the comments, someone congratulated her and identified her as Mary, not Claire. Confused, I fixed my gaze on the screen. The name read Mary Collins. It became clear then that Peyton had lied about her friend's son needing practice to explain the stranger at our bakery. The lie was complete from start to end. As the office door squeaked, Peyton entered. "I'm leaving work early, Connor," she said. Reese would stay behind to finish preparing for the morning. I handed him the kitchen keys and reminded him to lock the main entrance. "Of course, dear. Have a good night," I responded. I switched off my computer and placed the bank statement in the bottom drawer of my desk. It was then that I comprehended the situation clearly. Reese hadn't arrived at our bakery seeking employment. Instead, Peyton had summoned him there. A week passed, and unexpectedly, Reese informed me that our conventional oven-baked bread was antiquated and required an update on the display. I anticipated Peyton's objection since we had both carefully deliberated each recipe. However, she simply nodded without commenting. Practical and economically conscious, as always, Peyton usually scrutinized the bakery's expenses meticulously. However, she now signed off on bills for high-end imported chocolate and exotic spices that Reese insisted upon for the pastry station, without a second thought. I casually brought up that the profit margin on those pastries barely covered their costs, but she responded dismissively, accusing me of being inflexible. Meanwhile, Reese stood subtly behind her, smiling slightly in victory, seemingly assuming control of the situation. I kept a keen eye on the evolving situation throughout the day. In the bakery, which Peyton and I established jointly, I unexpectedly felt like an outsider. One day, Peyton entered my kitchen with a concerned demeanor, but I swiftly detected a hidden implication. She began discussing my prolonged exposure to hot ovens, suggesting that at 45, I should prioritize heart health and avoid overdoing the heavy tasks. She disclosed that she and Reese had discussed work schedules and decided to lessen my responsibilities. Reese would handle the morning bread-baking shifts, a role I've managed for 15 years, allowing me to sleep late and arrive at the bakery at 10. Reese respectfully interjected, expressing his eagerness to learn from my expertise and alleviate my daily routine. Appearances suggested tender care from both a caring spouse and diligent worker, yet it struck me as more than mere relief of duties. Instead, I sensed a blatant displacement from my own workspace, skillfully disguised with an appealing veneer. I attempted to politely protest my customary role in the initial mix, but Peyton swiftly interjected, revealing a brisk irritation uncharacteristic of her tone. "Connor," she asserted, as if settling a long-standing issue without debate, "the revised schedule has already been sanctioned." I offered a conciliatory response, suggesting the change might suit everyone better. Peyton's demeanor noticeably softened, and relief washed over her face, hinting at anticipated resistance. Reese also smiled, and his eyes betrayed an icy triumph. As evening approached, I ventured into the pastry section to retrieve a forgotten notebook. Peyton stood near the open refrigerator, whispering to Reese, who leaned close to her ear. When she noticed me, she remained unflinching. She gradually retreated and inquired calmly if I required anything. Reese tilted his head towards me, sporting a polite, content expression. Their unwavering belief in my innocence became increasingly obvious to me. I grabbed the notebook and headed to my office, settling into my chair and fixing my gaze on the screen for a few moments. Rage surged within me, but I managed to maintain my composure. If they believed me to be simple-minded, so be it. The impending impact with truth would only cause them pain. I dialed my lawyer's number, signaling that it was time to enter the game they had initiated without my knowledge. Thomas and I had known each other for over 2 decades. He was the one who assisted me in drafting the first documents to acquire the space. This was when the bakery existed merely as a dream, and Peyton was still my fiancée. In his office, Thomas served me whiskey without a word and took his seat opposite me. I suppressed my feelings and revealed everything to him instead. Regarding my young partner and the gradual distancing from my business matters, he attentively listened without interruption, merely furrowing his brow occasionally. Upon completion of my speech, he relaxed in his seat, tapping his fingers on the desk briefly. He then recalled the provisions of the prenuptial agreement between Peyton and I, reminding me of the ownership of the bakery property and the trademark registered under my name prior to our marriage. Thomas suggested refraining from immediate actions. Instead, I needed to prepare first. Crucial now was not revealing my awareness. Let them persist in their ignorance. We would methodically draft the divorce documents. Following this, they were in for an unforeseen surprise. I departed the lawyer's office late at night. No longer burning with anger, only a determined resolve filled me. I was well aware of my next steps. They had yet to realize that their game was concluded. For the subsequent 2 weeks, I visited the bakery precisely at 10 a.m. Reese reigned freely in the kitchen, discarded my old recipes, and revised the pricing tags. Peyton observed him with contentment from her glass office. Late on Friday night, I had already returned home when Thomas messaged me briefly. The documents are complete. Per our prenuptial agreement, in the event of a divorce, Peyton was no longer allowed to manage my bakery in any capacity. To add insult to injury, Thomas had also planned something else that Peyton hadn't anticipated, which was intended to be her most agonizing surprise. On Monday morning, the freeze on Peyton's workbank cards was scheduled, and a technician from a security firm was due to park outside our bakery to change all the door locks completely and hand me new keys. I pocketed my phone. Meanwhile, Peyton was lounging on the couch, painting her nails. Good night was exchanged, and I retired for the night. My alarm rang at 6 a.m. I slowly sipped my coffee, donned my clothes, and drove to the bakery. At precisely 7, the security technician completed his work. Following him were the robust workers from the cleaning service I had hired the previous day. They amassed Peyton's and Reese's belongings in heavy cardboard boxes which were already lined up on the curb by the service entrance by 7:30. A formal notice drafted by Thomas was already affixed to the door. Displaying prominently was Connor Black, the bakery's sole legal owner's name, on a white sheet. I then locked the door from within and waited. Exactly at 7:45, Peyton's car arrived at the service entrance. Through the window, I observed them exit the vehicle accompanied by Reese, engaging in lively conversation. The man approached the door with assurance, pulling on the handle. The door resisted opening. Reese furrowed his brow, exerted more force, and looked at Peyton with surprise. It was then she spotted the cardboard cartons. On top sat her preferred desk organizer and Reese's work apron. I moved onto the porch. A security personnel stood beside me. Peyton's countenance paled instantly and red blotches spread across her cheeks. Reese took a step forward, but the guard barred his path. "What's happening here, Connor?" "What's this commotion?" Her voice escalated into a yell. I silently indicated her to the notice on the window and handed over the documents Thomas had assembled. Simultaneously, her phone within her bag began vibrating with bank alerts. Peyton glanced at her phone screen. The smile left her face. Reese looked puzzled at the cartons on the floor, then at Peyton. His bravado and air of dominance vanished in an instant. "We have no further business to discuss. Direct all inquiries to Thomas now," I said evenly. I retreated and closed the door. The freshly locked door clicked, echoing its usual muted tone. Inside the bakery, a mix of yeasty dough and brewed coffee filled the air. Through the glass front door, I observed the commotion outside. Peyton was quickly flipping through a stack of papers from a document packet, her fingers shaking slightly. She was hastily speaking to Reese, showing him the documents. Reese listened for barely 30 seconds before his expression turned frosty and detached. He didn't even look at the papers she was offering. Without uttering a word, he stepped back silently, slipping his hands into his trousers pockets. Peyton attempted to grab his hand, but Reese jerked his elbow away briskly. With no words exchanged, he signaled a passing car, loaded his boxes, and left without another glance. Peyton's gaze remained fixed on the vacant intersection where Reese's vehicle had vanished. She was utterly devastated when she found out beyond any doubt that her young lover had abandoned her, a fact for which she had deceived me and ousted me from our bakery. Alone on the chilly sidewalk at dawn, surrounded by boxes, she looked into my eyes through the glass. Now a formidable barrier stood between us, unyielding and unbreachable. For another minute I stayed rooted there before I walked away towards the pastry station. I had no wish to squander any more of my time on this tumultuous situation. The starter was already expanding in the oven, and untouched dough lay on the tables. My former life lay in ruins, but Connor Black's bakery needed to open precisely at 9 in the morning. The divorce dragged on for almost half a year, Thomas seeing it through till the end, and the court granted me the bakery and the trademark. As early as 5 in the morning, our kitchen was once more filled with the scent of rising dough, cinnamon, and freshly ground coffee. Activated the ovens personally, inspected the dough's consistency, and arranged the initial batch of croissants on the showcase. At precisely 9 a.m., the jubilant bell above the front door would chime, welcoming the first patrons. I'd emerge from behind the counter, greet them warmly, and embark on another day, a time when it appeared my entire life had crumbled alongside Peyton. However, as time passed, I realized a single truth. Treachery can devastate a union, yet it cannot deprive a person of what they've constructed with their own efforts. Many acquaintances contended that, following 15 years of matrimony, I should have allowed Peyton some share in the business. What do you reckon? Share your thoughts below.